Some stories have the power to silence a room, not because of noise, but because of the weight of justice. Welcome to Swift Tale, the channel where real-life events, dramatic courtroom moments, and incredible stories of courage and justice come to life. Today, we're diving into a case that shook a courtroom and reminded everyone that fairness sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. If this is your first time visiting Swift Tale, I have a question for you. Do you enjoy stories where justice triumphs in ways you never saw coming? If your answer is yes, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story that reveals the power of truth. This story revolves around a deaf woman who relied on her interpreter to navigate the complex world of communication in legal matters. For years, the interpreter had been her trusted bridge to understanding, translating not only words but the subtle nuances of courtroom procedures. But one day, something went terribly wrong. The interpreter, someone the deaf woman had trusted implicitly, was unexpectedly arrested. The arrest shocked the community, baffled onlookers, and left everyone questioning the circumstances. The courtroom, which should have been a place of clarity and justice, suddenly became a place of tension, confusion, and disbelief. What makes this story truly remarkable is how Judge Caprio, a man known for his fairness and compassion, handled the situation. His response to the arrest and the ensuing courtroom drama stunned everyone present. It wasn't just the legal judgment that surprised the spectators, it was the humanity, wisdom, and unexpected approach he brought to a complex and emotionally charged situation. Through this story, we see that the law is not just about rules and regulations. It is about understanding, empathy, and doing what is right even when the outcome seems uncertain. This case is more than just a courtroom drama. It's a lesson on trust, vulnerability, and the importance of ensuring that justice is accessible to everyone, including those who cannot speak for themselves in traditional ways. It reminds us that in the pursuit of justice, assumptions can be dangerous, and even trusted individuals must be held accountable. It highlights the delicate balance between authority and responsibility, showing that true justice often requires courage, clarity, and the willingness to act in the face of uncertainty. Over the course of this story, we will explore the events leading up to the arrest, the tension and uncertainty in the courtroom, the reactions of the deaf woman, the interpreter, and the broader community. We will witness the careful, measured approach Judge Caprio took to uncover the truth and deliver a judgment that left everyone reflecting on fairness, accountability, and integrity. By the end of this story, you will not only understand what happened, but also why this moment matters so deeply in the larger conversation about justice, accessibility, and human decency. So, as we begin this journey, keep in mind the questions this story raises. How do we ensure that everyone has equal access to justice? What happens when someone we trust breaks that trust? And how can leadership, empathy, and wisdom transform a tense situation into a lesson for the ages? If you're ready to uncover the shocking twists and the powerful response of Judge Caprio, keep watching, and don't forget like, share, and subscribe to Swift Tale so you can follow along with stories that reveal the extraordinary in ordinary lives. The woman at the center of this story was someone who lived her life quietly yet with remarkable strength. Though deaf, she had never allowed her disability to define her or limit her ambitions. She navigated the world with a combination of resilience, intelligence, and resourcefulness, relying on tools and support systems to communicate effectively with those around her. Among these, her interpreter had become not just a translator of words, but a bridge to the larger world, an essential part of her daily life, especially when it came to navigating legal matters. She had learned early on that clear communication in the courtroom was vital. A misinterpreted word or a slight misunderstanding could completely alter the outcome of a case, and she had experienced the stress of this reality firsthand. Her personal life was one of careful independence. Friends and family admired her dedication to self-sufficiency while still providing the support she needed. She worked hard to ensure she could participate fully in her community, advocating for herself whenever necessary. Yet, she remained humble, preferring to let her actions speak louder than any words. She had faced challenges before, moments of frustration, misunderstanding, or societal bias, but she had always met them with a steady determination. Her life had been a balance between patience and persistence, and she had learned to anticipate the unexpected in a world that was not always accommodating to those with disabilities. It was this careful, measured life that made the sudden arrest of her interpreter all the more shocking. The person she trusted implicitly, the one who had consistently ensured her voice was heard in every legal and social setting, was now facing serious charges. The deaf woman's initial reaction was a mixture of disbelief, fear, and confusion. How could someone so integral to her daily life suddenly be in such a predicament? And what would this mean for her own ability to navigate the legal challenges ahead? These questions haunted her as she prepared for the coming court proceedings. Despite the shock, she remained composed. Years of experience had taught her that panic rarely helped in situations where logic and clarity were needed. She began to quietly gather her thoughts, prepare documentation, and lean on other supportive networks to ensure she could continue advocating for herself. She understood the stakes. Not only did the interpreter's arrest have implications for their professional relationship, but it also carried broader ramifications for her access to justice and her rights within the legal system. Her resilience was evident to anyone who observed her. Friends, family, and community members noted her calm demeanor, even in the face of extraordinary stress. She moved forward with a combination of caution and courage, recognizing that her voice, though reliant on translation, remained a force that could influence outcomes. It was this quiet strength, combined with her intelligence and determination, that would ultimately allow her to navigate the storm ahead and face the courtroom challenges with clarity and confidence. In understanding her background, it becomes clear why the events that unfolded were so extraordinary. This was not a woman who would be easily intimidated or silenced. She had prepared herself for a lifetime of challenges and had cultivated a sense of inner resolve that would serve her well as the story progressed. The arrest of her interpreter, while shocking, was merely the beginning of a courtroom drama that would test not just her patience and fortitude, but also the integrity of the legal system itself. As the courtroom proceedings approached, the audience must grasp the weight of her situation. Every word spoken on her behalf carried significance. Every misstep by those around her could have serious consequences. Yet, despite the uncertainty, she embodied a quiet determination that would set the stage for the remarkable interventions and unexpected judgments that would follow. Her story is not only one of personal courage, but also a powerful testament to the importance of fairness, accessibility, and the human spirit in the face of adversity. The interpreter was someone who had earned the trust and admiration of many, not only for her professional skills, but also for her dedication and reliability. She had spent years mastering the nuances of sign language and court protocol, ensuring that those who relied on her could fully participate in legal proceedings without fear of miscommunication. For the deaf woman, she had become more than just a translator. She was a guide, a confidant, and a vital lifeline to the world beyond silence. Every gesture, every subtle movement of her hands conveyed meaning with precision and care. In the courtroom, where every word carried weight, her expertise was indispensable. Her professional life had always been marked by meticulous attention to detail. She understood the gravity of her role, knowing that a single error could potentially alter the course of a case. She had handled difficult clients and complex legal scenarios before, always maintaining composure under pressure. Colleagues respected her for her calm demeanor, her unwavering focus, and her integrity. Even outside the courtroom, she had earned a reputation as someone dependable, principled, and deeply committed to helping those who depended on her. Despite her professional calm, the interpreter's life was not without its challenges. She often navigated bureaucratic hurdles, public misconceptions, and the emotional weight of translating the struggles of those she assisted. She was acutely aware of the responsibility she carried. In a way, she was the voice for individuals who could not speak for themselves in a conventional sense. Yet she had always managed this responsibility with grace, balancing the demands of her work with her personal life and maintaining an ethical approach that never wavered. It was precisely this combination of skill, diligence, and trustworthiness that made her sudden arrest so shocking. To everyone who knew her, including the deaf woman, this development seemed almost impossible. How could someone so respected, so careful, and so essential to the pursuit of justice find herself on the wrong side of the law? The circumstances surrounding the arrest were unclear at first, and speculations swirled in the community. Questions arose about potential misunderstandings, misinterpretations, or administrative errors. But whatever the reason, the impact was immediate. The deaf woman's ability to communicate effectively in legal proceedings was suddenly in jeopardy, and the courtroom itself became a stage for tension, confusion, and uncertainty. Even in the face of this disruption, the interpreter remained composed. Her professionalism did not falter, and she continued to cooperate with authorities, confident that the truth would eventually prevail. Her calm presence provided a measure of reassurance to the deaf woman, even as the situation grew increasingly complicated. Observers could see that beneath the surface, she was quietly strategizing, considering her options, and preparing for the moments that would define the upcoming court proceedings. The dynamic between the deaf woman and her interpreter was one of mutual respect and trust. This bond would be tested in ways that neither could have anticipated. The interpreter's arrest was not just a legal challenge, it was a profound disruption to the partnership they had relied on for so long. As the story unfolded, it became clear that the courtroom drama would hinge not only on legal arguments, but also on the resilience, intelligence, and integrity of these two individuals. Their journey would ultimately illuminate larger truths about justice, accountability, and the power of individuals to navigate even the most daunting obstacles. By understanding the interpreter's background and her relationship with the deaf woman, the audience can fully appreciate the stakes of the case. This is more than a simple legal proceeding. It is a story of trust tested, challenges faced, and unexpected courage revealed. The interpreter's role, once considered routine, suddenly becomes central to the drama, highlighting how essential her presence, and by extension, the principles of fairness and accessibility, truly are in a functioning justice system. The day of the incident began like any other, with the deaf woman and her interpreter preparing for a routine legal proceeding. Both had attended countless hearings before, and their interactions with the court staff had always been professional and smooth. However, this particular case involved a level of scrutiny and tension that neither had anticipated. The courtroom was filled with observers, legal personnel, and media representatives who had caught wind of the unusual circumstances surrounding the case. There was an air of anticipation, as though everyone sensed that something significant was about to unfold. The incident itself was seemingly minor at first, a misunderstanding amplified by bureaucracy and miscommunication. The interpreter, diligent as ever, followed protocol to ensure that the deaf woman could understand every aspect of the proceedings. Yet, a series of unfortunate events, a misfiled document, an overlooked procedure, or a misinterpreted instruction escalated the situation quickly. Authorities, perhaps acting without full context, decided to arrest the interpreter, believing there had been misconduct or a breach of legal protocol. The decision shocked the deaf woman, who had placed unwavering trust in her interpreter and could hardly fathom that someone so meticulous and conscientious would face legal trouble. As the arrest unfolded, the courtroom became tense and chaotic. People whispered, cameras clicked, and the deaf woman's support network reacted with concern and disbelief. Lawyers and staff scrambled to understand the situation, and even seasoned court personnel admitted that the circumstances were unusual and confusing. The interpreter remained calm throughout, demonstrating the same composure that had earned her respect over the years. Her actions were measured, precise, and professional, signaling that she was aware of the gravity of the situation, but confident in her eventual vindication. The deaf woman experienced a mixture of fear, frustration, and vulnerability. Suddenly, her primary means of communication and advocacy was removed, leaving her to navigate the complexities of the courtroom with limited support. This moment revealed the broader challenge faced by individuals with disabilities in legal settings, Even small disruptions can have disproportionately significant impacts. The audience begins to understand the stakes, not just for the interpreter, but for the deaf woman's ability to fully participate in the judicial process and to secure her rights. Amid the tension, murmurs in the courtroom speculated about the nature of the alleged offense, yet no one seemed to have a complete understanding of the facts. The arrest highlighted systemic issues, including the potential for misinterpretation, overreach by authorities, and the vulnerability of individuals who depend on specialized support. Every observer, from court staff to onlookers, was keenly aware that this was more than a procedural matter. It was a moment that would test the integrity, fairness, and compassion of everyone involved. Despite the shock and uncertainty, the deaf woman and the interpreter maintained a quiet resilience. The interpreter's professionalism remained intact, and the deaf woman focused on staying calm and observant, understanding that her composure could influence the unfolding events. Meanwhile, those present in the courtroom, including legal experts and witnesses, began to anticipate the arrival of Judge Caprio, whose reputation for fairness and insight promised a resolution that might defuse the tension and restore order. This incident, minor as it may have appeared initially, set the stage for a courtroom drama that would captivate everyone involved. It was a moment where the ordinary mechanisms of justice collided with human trust, vulnerability, and accountability. As the story progressed, it became clear that the interpreter's arrest would not only challenge the deaf woman's ability to advocate for herself, but also illuminate the remarkable leadership and unexpected decisions that would define Judge Caprio's handling of the case. News of the interpreter's arrest spread quickly, and the community's response was immediate and intense. Local residents, who had long admired both the deaf woman and her interpreter, were stunned by the sudden and seemingly unjust action. Conversations in cafes, workplaces, and homes reflected a mix of shock, disbelief, and outrage. Many people could not fathom how someone so trusted and respected could be taken into custody under circumstances that appeared unclear, if not outright unjust. The community's reaction underscored a fundamental truth. People rally when they perceive fairness has been violated, especially when the vulnerable are involved. Social media amplified the situation exponentially. Posts, videos, and commentary began circulating, highlighting both the arrest itself and the broader issues it raised about accessibility and justice. Some accounts focused on the procedural aspects, questioning whether the authorities had acted too hastily or without adequate context. Others expressed concern for the deaf woman, recognizing how critical the interpreter had been to her ability to understand and participate fully in the courtroom. The story quickly gained traction, with online debates highlighting differing opinions on accountability, responsibility, and the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities in legal settings. Media coverage painted a vivid picture of the tension surrounding the case. Local news outlets reported on the arrest, interviews with legal experts dissected the potential ramifications, and opinion pieces highlighted the societal importance of accessibility in justice. The story became more than just a legal matter. It evolved into a discussion about ethics, trust, and the responsibility of institutions to protect the rights of all citizens, especially those who depend on specialized support to navigate complex systems. Headlines emphasized the unexpected nature of the arrest, and many reporters speculated about what Judge Caprio's response might be, given his reputation for fairness and compassion. Amid this flurry of attention, the deaf woman became a symbol of resilience and dignity. Friends, family, and advocates rallied around her, offering emotional support and helping her prepare for the court proceedings. The community recognized that her ability to engage with the legal system had been disrupted, and there was a collective desire to ensure she would not be disadvantaged. This support network became a crucial factor in maintaining her confidence, demonstrating that justice is often reinforced not only by judges and laws, but also by the solidarity of those who care. Meanwhile, the interpreter, though facing the uncertainty of her arrest, maintained her composure. Observers noted her calm and professional demeanor, which contrasted sharply with the public frenzy and courtroom speculation. She understood the power of perception and the importance of presenting herself as competent, credible, and reliable despite the challenging circumstances. Her resilience, combined with the deaf woman's courage, began to shift the narrative from one of fear and confusion to one of anticipation for how justice would ultimately prevail. This period of public reaction also highlighted systemic issues. People began questioning the clarity of procedures, the accountability of authorities, and the accessibility of the legal system for individuals with disabilities. Discussions emerged about the importance of interpreters, the consequences of miscommunication, and the responsibilities of those who enforce the law. The arrest served as a catalyst for broader conversations, showing that even a single incident can illuminate areas where improvements are needed. By the time the courtroom proceedings were about to begin, the tension was palpable. The community, media, and supporters of the deaf woman and her interpreter were all watching closely, aware that what unfolded next could set a precedent and send a powerful message about fairness, integrity, and compassion. The stage was set for Judge Caprio to enter, and everyone waited to see how his intervention would reshape the narrative. It was clear that this was no ordinary case. This was a story that would challenge assumptions, reveal character, and ultimately demonstrate that justice is most meaningful when it is both fair and empathetic. The day the legal proceedings officially began was tense, charged with an energy that few in the courtroom could ignore. The deaf woman arrived early, accompanied by a few supportive friends and advocates who understood the high stakes. She carried with her a quiet determination, knowing that every gesture, every document, and every decision could shape the outcome of this unusual case. She understood that her ability to communicate effectively would be central to her participation, and with her interpreter unexpectedly arrested, the weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on her shoulders. The interpreter, though in custody, remained professionally prepared for what was to come. Despite the shock of the arrest, she had coordinated with her legal counsel to ensure that her defense was clear, documented, and compelling. From behind the courtroom doors, her presence was felt, an aura of calm professionalism that contrasted sharply with the anxiety and curiosity of everyone else present. Observers noted her poise, a silent reminder that competence and integrity could shine even under scrutiny and misunderstanding. Courtroom personnel moved with precision, setting up the proceedings and ensuring that all protocols were followed. Legal clerks shuffled papers, attorneys arranged their notes, and the judge's chamber prepared for what was expected to be an intricate case. Even among seasoned court officials, there was a sense of anticipation. The unusual circumstances, the arrest of a trusted interpreter, had created a ripple effect, raising questions about procedural fairness, the rights of those dependent on translators, and the broader implications for accessibility in legal processes. The deaf woman's attorney began by outlining the facts of the case to the court, carefully emphasizing the reliability, professionalism, and indispensable role of the interpreter. Every detail was crucial, every word deliberate, as the courtroom listened intently. The attorney painted a vivid picture of the trust that existed between the deaf woman and her interpreter, demonstrating how this bond had enabled fair participation in past proceedings, and why its disruption now represented more than a simple procedural issue. On the other side, the prosecution presented their rationale for the arrest, citing alleged violations or procedural errors. Their arguments were methodical, yet the courtroom could sense an undercurrent of uncertainty. Even the prosecution seemed aware that the situation was unusual and demanded careful scrutiny. The tension in the air was palpable, and the deaf woman, despite her reliance on gestures and written communication, followed each exchange with keen attention, absorbing the implications of every statement. As the day progressed, witnesses were called, documents were examined, and every procedural step was meticulously observed. The courtroom, normally a place of predictable rhythm and decorum, felt charged with emotion and suspense. The absence of the interpreter created a unique dynamic, highlighting the critical role she played not only in translating language, but in bridging understanding between the deaf woman and the judicial system. Every observer in that room began to grasp the significance of accessibility in law and the profound consequences when it is disrupted. Through it all, the deaf woman maintained a steady composure. Her focus was unwavering, and her reliance on her inner strength and preparatory planning became increasingly evident. She had anticipated obstacles, and though the arrest of her interpreter was unforeseen, she refused to allow fear or uncertainty to dictate her response. Her determination was mirrored in the courtroom staff, the judge, and the legal counsel who recognized the importance of fairness, clarity, and the pursuit of justice under unusual circumstances. The opening day of the proceedings set the tone for what was to come. It was clear that this case would test not only the legal system, but also the principles of trust, accountability, and human empathy. The courtroom had become a stage for far more than legal arguments. It was a demonstration of resilience, professionalism, and the delicate balance between authority and fairness. As the proceedings continued, all eyes were on the eventual intervention of Judge Caprio, whose reputation for wisdom, fairness, and unexpected decisions promised to shape the course of this extraordinary case. The moment Judge Frank Caprio entered the courtroom, the atmosphere shifted. Known for his calm demeanor, fairness, and an uncanny ability to understand both the law and the human heart, Judge Caprio carried with him an aura of respect and authority. Observers immediately sensed that his involvement would not only bring order to the proceedings, but also provide clarity in a situation fraught with tension and uncertainty. His reputation had preceded him. Stories of past cases where he had balanced justice with compassion filled the minds of those present, setting the stage for a courtroom drama unlike any other. Judge Caprio listened intently as both sides summarized their positions. The prosecution laid out the reasons for the interpreter's arrest, highlighting alleged procedural missteps and presenting evidence that, on paper, appeared meticulous yet failed to capture the broader context. The deaf woman's attorney countered with detailed explanations of the interpreter's professionalism, emphasizing her role as a vital conduit for accurate communication and the necessity of fairness in proceedings involving individuals with disabilities. Judge Caprio observed both sides with keen attention, his expressions revealing nothing, yet conveying a sense of thoughtful evaluation that immediately commanded respect. From the outset, it was clear that Judge Caprio would not allow assumptions or rigid adherence to protocol to overshadow the principles of justice. He asked pointed questions, seeking to understand not only the legal specifics, but also the human elements of the case. How had the arrest been initiated? Were alternative measures considered? What impact did the absence of the interpreter have on the deaf woman's ability to fully participate in the proceedings? These inquiries demonstrated his commitment to fairness and illuminated his unique approach. Every case, no matter how procedural or technical it may appear, deserved careful scrutiny and thoughtful judgment. The courtroom reacted to his presence with a mixture of relief and anticipation. Legal professionals, staff, and observers sensed that Judge Caprio's intervention could reshape the outcome of the case. Even the interpreter, listening from custody, felt a quiet reassurance that the judge would examine the situation with insight and impartiality. The deaf woman, too, recognized the significance of his involvement. She had witnessed Judge Caprio's prior rulings, stories of which were widely circulated in the legal community, and she knew that his approach often extended beyond mere technicalities to address fairness, humanity, and truth. As the hearings continued under Judge Caprio's oversight, the dynamics of the courtroom began to change. Attorneys on both sides adjusted their strategies. Aware that the judge would expect thorough explanations, careful reasoning, and a nuanced understanding of the circumstances, witnesses were treated with patience and respect, and the proceedings took on a tone that was both rigorous and humane. Judge Caprio's ability to remain neutral while simultaneously understanding the broader context created an environment where justice could be pursued thoughtfully rather than hurriedly. His questions were precise yet empathetic, allowing both the prosecution and defense to present their arguments while highlighting key issues that might otherwise have been overlooked. He probed the rationale behind the interpreter's arrest, the procedures followed, and the potential consequences for the deaf woman. With each inquiry, it became increasingly apparent that Judge Caprio's response would not be predictable or ordinary. The courtroom began to sense that something remarkable was unfolding, an intervention that would balance legality with fairness and ultimately deliver a resolution that honored both the law and human dignity. By the end of the first day under Judge Caprio's guidance, it was clear to everyone present that his involvement would redefine the narrative of the case. The courtroom was no longer simply a place of dispute. It had become a stage where justice, compassion, and accountability intersected. Observers recognized that the outcome would not only affect the interpreter and the deaf woman, but could also serve as a powerful example of how integrity and wisdom in leadership can restore balance in even the most complex legal situations. The stage was set for a series of events that would surprise, inspire, and ultimately affirm the enduring principles of justice that Judge Caprio embodied. As the hearings progressed under Judge Caprio's watchful eye, the courtroom tension escalated with each passing moment. The interpreter's arrest, which initially seemed like a procedural formality, had evolved into a situation charged with emotion, speculation, and heightened stakes. The deaf woman sat quietly but attentively, her focus unwavering despite the growing unease surrounding her. Every gesture, every note she exchanged with her remaining support system carried immense weight. The courtroom had become more than a venue for legal arguments. It was a stage where fairness, justice, and human empathy were being tested in real time. The prosecution intensified their case, presenting a detailed timeline of events and emphasizing the alleged errors that had led to the interpreter's arrest. Their tone was methodical yet stern, leaving little room for doubt in the minds of those who had not considered the broader context. However, as the day wore on, cracks in their arguments began to appear. Under Judge Caprio's careful questioning, inconsistencies emerged, and the rationale behind the arrest began to falter under scrutiny. Observers in the courtroom noted the subtle shift. What had started as a seemingly straightforward case was revealing deeper complexities and raising important questions about justice, trust, and accountability. Meanwhile, the deaf woman's attorney seized the opportunity to present a compelling narrative that highlighted the interpreter's professionalism, reliability, and essential role in facilitating communication. Every example of past excellence, every documented success in legal proceedings reinforced the idea that the interpreter's arrest was not merely a technicality, but a disruption of justice itself. The courtroom began to sense the contrast. On one side, rigid procedural arguments. On the other, a human story underscoring the profound importance of trust, competence, and fairness. As tension grew, the reactions of those present became increasingly palpable. Court staff exchanged quiet whispers, witnesses adjusted nervously in their seats, and media representatives documented every development with intense focus. The deaf woman's calm presence provided a stark counterpoint to the rising anxiety, signaling her resilience and determination. Even without words, her demeanor conveyed strength and a keen understanding of the gravity of the situation. Observers began to appreciate that the story was not just about an arrest. It was about the broader implications for accessibility, accountability, and the ethical responsibilities of those who enforce the law. Judge Caprio's interventions were subtle yet decisive. Through thoughtful questions and measured guidance, he began to steer the proceedings toward clarity, ensuring that both sides articulated their positions while addressing critical gaps in understanding. His calm authority diffused some of the tension while simultaneously highlighting the seriousness of the issues at hand. Every participant, prosecution, defense, witnesses, and observers, recognized that the courtroom was under the stewardship of a judge who valued both legal precision and human dignity, and that his approach would shape the unfolding drama in ways few had anticipated. By midday, the courtroom had transformed into a theater of contrasts, confidence clashing with uncertainty, procedural rigidity challenged by human experience, and fear tempered by resilience. The deaf woman, though relying on limited communication without her interpreter, navigated the proceedings with extraordinary poise. The interpreter's professional reputation and prior conduct became central to the debate, reinforcing the idea that justice is not solely about rules, but also about understanding the individuals involved and ensuring that every voice, spoken, signed, or otherwise, is fairly represented. As the day concluded, the audience and participants alike realized that the stakes had grown far beyond the original arrest. The courtroom tension, though palpable, had catalyzed a deeper examination of justice, accessibility, and integrity. Judge Caprio's careful handling of the case promised that the coming days would reveal surprising developments, unexpected insights, and a resolution that would challenge assumptions and leave a lasting impression on everyone present. The stage was set for the next critical phase: testimonies, revelations, and the pivotal moments that would ultimately determine the outcome of this extraordinary case. The courtroom atmosphere became even more charged as key testimonies began, each one adding layers of clarity, tension, and drama to the case. Witness after witness took the stand, recounting events with precision and detail, painting a picture of both the deaf woman's reliance on her interpreter and the interpreter's unblemished track record of professionalism. Every testimony reinforced the idea that the interpreter had been an indispensable conduit, translating not just words, but intent, emotion, and nuance in high-stakes legal proceedings. The courtroom audience could feel the weight of each statement. The stakes were no longer abstract, but deeply human. One witness, a fellow interpreter with years of experience in legal settings, spoke eloquently about the critical role of accuracy and trust in their profession. They explained how even a minor misinterpretation could drastically affect the outcome of a case, and highlighted the deaf woman's reliance on her interpreter for full comprehension and participation. This testimony struck a chord with the courtroom, emphasizing not only the technical skill required, but the ethical responsibility inherent in the role. The public, watching closely, began to grasp the profound impact of the interpreter's temporary absence and the potential injustice that could have occurred without their diligent intervention. The deaf woman herself provided a subtle yet powerful testimony. Through written notes and gestures, she conveyed the depth of her trust in her interpreter and the challenges she faced in communicating effectively without her. Her words, though simple in form, carried immense weight, capturing the human side of the case in a way that no technical argument could. Every person in the courtroom, from Judge Caprio to observers in the gallery, could sense the authenticity and courage behind her statements. Her calm yet resolute demeanor demonstrated that even in moments of vulnerability, her voice, and by extension, the interpreter's role, remained central to the pursuit of justice. Other witnesses included court staff and legal professionals who attested to the interpreter's meticulous approach and integrity. They recounted specific instances where her intervention had prevented misunderstandings, clarified critical details, and ensured that cases were handled fairly. These testimonies collectively created a narrative that the interpreter's arrest was not only surprising, but also potentially detrimental to the fair administration of justice. The courtroom felt the tension between procedure and principle, and it became increasingly evident that Judge Caprio would need to navigate this delicate balance with both wisdom and foresight. Throughout the testimonies, the prosecutor's arguments began to falter under the weight of evidence and witness credibility. Inconsistencies in the prosecution's narrative became more apparent, and their assertions were countered by factual accounts and detailed professional endorsements of the interpreter's competence. Each testimony added momentum to the defense's position, illustrating the human impact of the arrest and the importance of maintaining fairness for those reliant on translation services. Judge Caprio observed intently, asking clarifying questions when necessary, and gently guiding the proceedings to ensure that all critical perspectives were fully understood. By the end of the day's testimonies, the courtroom had gained a deeper understanding of the stakes involved. It was no longer just a case about a procedural misstep or an unexpected arrest. It had become a story about trust, accountability, and the importance of accessibility in the legal system. The deaf woman's experience, combined with the interpreter's professionalism and the detailed witness accounts, set the stage for Judge Caprio's forthcoming response, one that would ultimately surprise everyone and demonstrate the profound impact of fairness, insight, and compassion in the administration of justice. As the testimonies concluded and the evidence had been carefully reviewed, Judge Frank Caprio leaned forward, signaling that it was time to address the courtroom. His presence alone seemed to still the room, commanding attention and respect without a word. Everyone knew that his response would be measured, thoughtful, and potentially transformative. After days of tension, confusion, and anticipation, the moment had arrived to witness a demonstration of justice that extended beyond mere technicalities. Judge Caprio began by acknowledging the complexity of the case, noting the unusual circumstances surrounding the interpreter's arrest and the profound impact on the deaf woman's ability to participate fully in the legal proceedings. He praised the professionalism and dedication of the interpreter, emphasizing that her actions had been consistent, ethical, and indispensable to maintaining fairness in the courtroom. His words were precise, compassionate, and clear, highlighting not only the legal perspective but also the human elements that had been central to the case from the beginning. Then came the unexpected element that would leave everyone in the courtroom stunned. Judge Caprio made a ruling that addressed the arrest decisively, but also highlighted accountability, fairness, and the importance of trust in professional relationships. He demonstrated an acute understanding of both the law and the human impact of its application. By carefully balancing legal obligations with compassion and insight, he underscored a critical principle. Justice is not solely about rules, but about ensuring that every individual's rights are preserved, particularly those most vulnerable in the system. The courtroom erupted in a mixture of relief, admiration, and astonishment. Observers, lawyers, and staff alike recognized that this was not an ordinary judicial response. The judge's decision effectively restored the interpreter's professional standing while also sending a clear message about the responsibility of authorities to act with care and precision. At the same time, he highlighted the importance of maintaining accessibility for individuals who rely on specialized support, ensuring that procedural actions do not inadvertently compromise fundamental rights. The deaf woman's reaction was profound yet measured. Through gestures, subtle expressions, and written communication, she conveyed gratitude, relief, and renewed confidence in the fairness of the legal system. Her trust, once threatened by the unexpected arrest, had been reaffirmed by Judge Caprio's wise and humane intervention. The interpreter, now cleared of unjust accusations, experienced both vindication and deep respect from all present, understanding that her professionalism had been recognized and restored in the most public and impactful way possible. Media coverage of the ruling highlighted not just the legal outcome, but the remarkable manner in which Judge Caprio had handled the proceedings. Commentators praised his ability to combine legal precision with empathy, setting an example for judges, lawyers, and communities everywhere. Public discussion focused on the lessons learned, the necessity of accountability, the importance of accessibility, and the profound difference that wisdom, insight, and integrity can make in ensuring justice is truly served. By the end of the session, it was evident to all in the courtroom that this case would be remembered for years to come, not only for the surprising twists and high-stakes drama, but for the exemplary way in which justice was ultimately delivered. Judge Caprio's response had transcended the specifics of the case, demonstrating that fairness, humanity, and principled leadership are essential pillars of a functioning legal system. The courtroom had witnessed more than a ruling. It had witnessed a reaffirmation of trust, dignity, and the enduring power of thoughtful, compassionate justice. The interpreter emerged from the courtroom not just vindicated, but profoundly changed by the experience. What had begun as a routine professional role had turned into a public ordeal that tested her resilience, patience, and integrity. The immediate aftermath involved both personal and professional reflection as she processed the shock of her arrest and the relief of the judge's ruling. Colleagues, friends, and supporters rallied around her, offering congratulations, reassurance, and moral support, but also prompting her to consider the broader implications of what had transpired. Professionally, the interpreter's reputation, which had already been strong, was now elevated. The courtroom had witnessed her unwavering dedication, precision, and ethical conduct under scrutiny, and her performance in such a high-stakes scenario became a testament to her skill and integrity. Legal professionals and advocacy groups recognized her as an example of professionalism in the face of adversity, and her story began to circulate in legal circles as a lesson on the importance of ethical responsibility, accountability, and calm composure under pressure. The experience, while challenging, solidified her standing as a trusted and indispensable figure in the field of legal interpretation. Yet the ordeal was not without its personal challenges. The interpreter had to confront the emotional toll of being unjustly arrested, including the feelings of frustration, fear, and uncertainty that accompanied the experience. She leaned on her support network, reflecting on how quickly a career and reputation could be challenged by circumstances beyond one's control. This period of introspection allowed her to process the event fully. And in doing so, she emerged with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper appreciation for the role she played in ensuring justice and accessibility for individuals who relied on her. Public perception, too, shifted in her favor. Media coverage highlighted not just the arrest, but the courtroom vindication and the clarity brought by Judge Caprio's ruling. Audiences were captivated by the narrative of competence, professionalism, and resilience under pressure. Social media posts, opinion pieces, and discussions emphasized her dedication and the unjust nature of the initial arrest, ultimately turning what could have been a career setback into a moment of recognition and respect. She became a symbol of ethical perseverance and a reminder of the essential role interpreters play in ensuring fairness in legal systems. The interpreter also reflected on the importance of her relationship with the deaf woman. Their bond, tested by the unexpected arrest, had emerged stronger, grounded in mutual trust, understanding, and shared experience. Both women had navigated an extraordinary challenge, and their collaboration had proven essential to maintaining clarity, fairness, and effective communication throughout the proceedings. The experience reinforced the value of careful preparation, ethical conduct, and resilience in high-pressure situations, lessons that would guide her future professional interactions and personal decisions. Ultimately, the aftermath for the interpreter was a mix of relief, recognition, and reflection. She had faced an extraordinary challenge and emerged not only cleared of any wrongdoing, but elevated as a figure of professionalism, integrity, and courage. Her story served as a reminder that even in the face of unexpected adversity, competence, ethical responsibility, and composure can prevail, transforming a potentially devastating experience into a narrative of triumph, respect, and lasting impact on both the legal community and the individuals she served. For the deaf woman, the conclusion of the case brought a mixture of relief, empowerment, and reflection. The arrest of her trusted interpreter had been a jarring and destabilizing experience, leaving her momentarily vulnerable in a system that depended heavily on communication. However, Judge Caprio's decisive and compassionate handling of the case restored not only her ability to fully participate in legal matters, but also her confidence in the fairness of the judicial process. The experience underscored the importance of resilience, preparation, and the right to equitable treatment under the law. In the immediate aftermath, she took time to reflect on the vulnerability that had been exposed by the interpreter's temporary absence. While she had navigated many challenges throughout her life, this incident highlighted the dependence on trusted individuals and the potential risks when that trust is disrupted. Yet, instead of fostering fear or resentment, it strengthened her resolve to advocate for herself and others in similar situations. She became more aware of the critical importance of accessibility in legal proceedings and recognized that her experience could serve as a model for promoting fairness and inclusivity in the justice system. Her personal life was also touched by a renewed sense of community and support. Friends, family, and advocates had rallied around her during the ordeal, demonstrating the power of solidarity in moments of crisis. Their encouragement not only helped her maintain composure during the proceedings, but also reinforced the value of collective advocacy in ensuring that justice is upheld. Through these experiences, she gained a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of personal courage, community support, and systemic fairness. Professionally and socially, the deaf woman's story began to inspire conversations about the rights and challenges of individuals with disabilities in legal and public contexts. Media coverage highlighted her resilience and composed demeanor, casting her as a figure of strength and determination. Discussions on accessibility, interpreter accountability, and the ethical responsibilities of authorities gained traction, using her experience as a real-world example of how justice can be both disrupted and restored. Her voice, once mediated through the interpreter, now carried greater influence and visibility, emphasizing that individuals with disabilities have an essential role in shaping conversations about fairness and equality. The case also fostered a deeper sense of trust and appreciation for those who acted ethically and responsibly throughout the ordeal. From her attorney's meticulous advocacy to Judge Caprio's insightful and humane rulings, she experienced firsthand the impact that principled individuals can have in protecting rights and ensuring justice. These interactions reinforced her belief in the importance of accountability, integrity, and empathy, values that would guide her future engagements with the legal system and in her broader life. Ultimately, the deaf woman emerged from the experience stronger, wiser, and more empowered. The ordeal had tested her patience, trust, and resilience, but it had also reaffirmed her ability to navigate challenges with dignity and courage. Her story became not only a testament to personal fortitude, but also a powerful illustration of the necessity of accessibility, fairness, and human empathy in legal systems. Through this journey, she, and everyone who witnessed it, learned that justice is most meaningful when it encompasses both the letter of the law and the humanity of those it serves. The case of the deaf woman and her interpreter quickly transcended the courtroom, becoming a reference point for broader discussions about justice, accessibility, and accountability. Observers, legal professionals, and advocacy groups all recognized that this was not merely an isolated incident. It highlighted systemic issues that affect countless individuals navigating complex legal systems. The situation underscored a vital truth. The law is not only about procedure and enforcement, but also about ensuring equitable access and understanding for everyone, regardless of ability or circumstance. One of the key lessons from this case was the critical role of interpreters in the legal process. The interpreter's arrest revealed how dependent individuals with disabilities are on these professionals and how a single disruption can have profound consequences. Legal experts emphasized the importance of maintaining clear standards, rigorous training, and accountability measures for interpreters, while simultaneously protecting their rights and acknowledging their indispensable contribution to justice. The case illustrated that fairness in the courtroom is a collective responsibility, requiring careful attention to both human and procedural factors. Another important takeaway involved the ethical responsibilities of authorities. The arrest, while technically justifiable under certain procedural interpretations, highlighted the dangers of acting without full context or understanding. Missteps can lead to unnecessary distress, reputational damage, and disruption of justice for vulnerable individuals. Advocates argued that this case should serve as a reminder for law enforcement, judicial personnel, and administrative authorities to exercise discretion, empathy, and thorough assessment before taking action that could adversely affect those who rely on specialized support. Societal lessons were equally significant. The public reaction to the case demonstrated widespread concern for fairness, equity, and accountability. Community support for both the deaf woman and her interpreter emphasized the value of empathy and solidarity in addressing systemic challenges. Social media discussions, news coverage, and public forums fostered greater awareness of accessibility issues, encouraging dialogue about how institutions can improve and ensuring that marginalized voices are heard and protected in both legal and social contexts. Judge Caprio's handling of the case became a benchmark for leadership in complex legal situations. His approach, which combined rigorous examination of facts with compassion and insight, illustrated that justice is most effective when it considers both the technical and human dimensions of a case. Legal scholars and practitioners alike highlighted his example as a reminder that the judiciary has the power and the responsibility to ensure that fairness, empathy, and accountability coexist with procedural rigor. Ultimately, the broader lessons from this case extend far beyond the courtroom walls. It became a story of resilience, ethical responsibility, and the transformative power of fairness. It reminded the public that access to justice is a right, not a privilege, and that those entrusted with enforcing the law must remain vigilant, empathetic, and principled. The deaf woman's experience, the interpreter's professionalism, and Judge Caprio's wisdom together created a blueprint for how justice can, and should, function in a society that values both legality and humanity. The public and media response to the case was immediate and widespread, demonstrating just how much this story resonated beyond the courtroom. News outlets covered every development, from the arrest of the interpreter to Judge Caprio's decisive ruling, and social media platforms were flooded with discussions, debates, and personal reflections. People were captivated not only by the drama of the legal proceedings, but also by the larger themes of fairness, accessibility, and human empathy that the case illuminated. The story quickly became a reference point for conversations about justice in the modern era. Media coverage emphasized the exceptional professionalism of the interpreter, the resilience of the deaf woman, and the wisdom of Judge Caprio. Commentators praised the judge's ability to balance the strict letter of the law with fairness and compassion, framing his intervention as a benchmark for judicial leadership. The public, inspired by the story, expressed admiration for all parties involved and used the case as an opportunity to discuss broader societal issues. These included the responsibilities of authorities, the challenges faced by individuals with disabilities, and the critical importance of clear, accurate communication in legal and public institutions. Advocacy groups quickly seized upon the case as a teaching moment. Organizations focused on disability rights, legal accessibility, and interpreter standards highlighted the incident as an example of both the vulnerabilities and the protections necessary within the system. They called for reforms to prevent similar situations in the future, including clearer guidelines for interpreter responsibilities, stronger safeguards against unwarranted arrests, and enhanced training for authorities to recognize the importance of accessibility in legal proceedings. By doing so, the case became a catalyst for meaningful discussion and potential policy change. Public reaction also reflected a strong sense of solidarity and empathy. People expressed support for the deaf woman and her interpreter, praising their professionalism, resilience, and courage in the face of an unexpected crisis. Online campaigns, community forums, and opinion pieces emphasized the need for society to prioritize fairness, inclusivity, and the ethical treatment of all individuals, particularly those whose voices rely on translation or support services to be fully heard. The narrative resonated deeply because it highlighted the human impact of procedural missteps and underscored the power of principled action in restoring justice. The media and public attention ultimately helped elevate awareness of the broader issues at stake. Stories of the deaf woman and her interpreter were shared widely, inspiring both admiration and reflection. Legal professionals, students, and everyday citizens alike were reminded that justice is not merely about technicalities. It is about empathy, accountability, and the recognition of human dignity. Judge Caprio's ruling, amplified through these channels, became an example of how careful, principled decision-making can influence not only a single case, but also public understanding and expectations of fairness in the legal system. In the weeks and months following the verdict, the case continued to generate conversation, shaping perceptions of justice, accessibility, and ethical responsibility. Its impact extended beyond the immediate parties involved, serving as a lasting reminder that the principles of fairness, compassion, and accountability must guide not only the actions of judges and lawyers, but also the attitudes and practices of society as a whole. As the story of the deaf woman, her interpreter, and Judge Caprio's surprising response draws to a close, it leaves a powerful message about justice, fairness, and the human spirit. This case serves as a reminder that the law is not just a set of rules to be followed blindly. It is a living system that must account for context, humanity, and the voices of those most affected. Through the courage of the deaf woman, the professionalism of the interpreter, and the wisdom of Judge Caprio, we see how justice can be both precise and compassionate, and how fairness can prevail even in the most complex and unexpected situations. The lessons extend far beyond the courtroom. For individuals navigating legal challenges, the story highlights the importance of preparation, trust, and resilience. For legal professionals and authorities, it emphasizes the need for diligence, ethical conduct, and an awareness of the human consequences of procedural decisions. And for society at large, it serves as a reminder of the power of empathy, solidarity, and advocacy in shaping a justice system that works for everyone. Every action, from the interpreter's careful translation to the judge's insightful rulings, demonstrates that fairness requires more than adherence to rules. It demands awareness, integrity, and courage. As we reflect on this remarkable story, it is important to consider the broader impact it has on our understanding of accessibility, accountability, and human dignity. The deaf woman's experience shows that even those who appear most vulnerable can be empowered through the support of skilled professionals and principled leadership. The interpreter's conduct highlights the importance of expertise, responsibility, and perseverance. And Judge Caprio's intervention demonstrates that thoughtful, humane decision-making can restore trust, prevent injustice, and inspire communities to uphold higher standards of fairness. For our audience here at Swift Tale, this story is a reminder that extraordinary events often teach the most valuable lessons. If you're visiting for the first time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to explore more stories where courage, justice, and unexpected twists collide. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you have reacted if you were in the deaf woman's or the interpreter's position? Your perspective matters, and discussing these stories helps us all learn from real-life experiences of resilience, accountability, and ethical action. In conclusion, the saga of the deaf woman, her interpreter, and Judge Caprio's surprising judgment is not just a tale of legal drama. It is a celebration of fairness, humanity, and the power of principled action. It reminds us that justice is most meaningful when it is equitable, accessible, and guided by integrity. Let this story inspire us to advocate for fairness in every corner of our lives, to support those whose voices are too often unheard, and to trust in the principles of ethical responsibility that ensure justice prevails. Like, share, and subscribe to Swift Tale, and join us in exploring more.